Sarah's co-workers laughed at her tattoo every day, calling it girly artwork that proved women didn't belong in the military. They said it looked like something from Pinterest. But when the Navy SEAL commander saw those geometric lines on her arm, he immediately stood at attention and saluted her with deep respect. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Sarah Martinez had been working at the military base for 2 years. She was a good soldier who did her job well. She fixed vehicles, handled paperwork, and helped wherever she was needed. But there was one thing about Sarah that made some of the male soldiers laugh at her: a tattoo on her left arm. The tattoo looked like simple geometric lines. Most people thought it was just a decorative design. The male soldiers often made jokes about it. They said it looked feminine and unprofessional. They thought Sarah got it to look cool like many young people do. "Look at Martinez with her pretty little drawing," Sergeant Jake Wilson would say loudly in the mess hall. "What is that supposed to be? Some kind of flower design?" His friends would laugh. "Probably got it at a cheap tattoo shop," Corporal Mike Davis would add. "These women think tattoos make them look tough." Private Tom Baker always joined in too. "My girlfriend has something similar. Very girly. Sarah probably saw it on Pinterest or Instagram." Sarah would hear these comments but never responded. She would just continue eating her meal or doing her work. She had learned that arguing with them only made things worse. The jokes had been going on for months. The other soldiers didn't know much about Sarah's background. They knew she had served overseas, but many soldiers had done that. Her official records showed standard support duties, communications, vehicle maintenance, and administrative work. Nothing seemed special or heroic about her service. "You know what bothers me?" Sergeant Wilson said one day as they watched Sarah working on a truck engine. "Women come into the military thinking they need to prove something. They get tattoos and act tough, but they're just here to do paperwork and stay out of the way." "Exactly," agreed Davis. "That tattoo is probably some motivational quote in a foreign language she doesn't even understand. Something like live, love, laugh, in Arabic or Chinese." The men would often make these comments when Sarah was close enough to hear. They thought it was funny. They believed women didn't belong in real military roles and that Sarah's tattoo proved she didn't understand true military culture. One morning, Colonel Roberts called Sarah into his office. "Martinez, we're having an important visitor tomorrow. A Navy SEAL commander is coming to inspect our facilities. I need you to prepare the VIP vehicle and make sure everything is perfect." "Yes, sir," Sarah replied. "What level of security should I prepare for?" "High level. This commander has seen serious combat. He's here to evaluate our operations. Everything must be flawless." Sarah spent the rest of the day preparing. She checked every detail of the vehicles, ensured all equipment was working perfectly, and reviewed the security protocols. She was thorough and professional as always. The next morning, Sarah was in the administrative building finishing some reports when she heard vehicles arriving outside. Through the window she could see black SUVs and military vehicles pulling up. The important visitor had arrived. She gathered her files and headed toward the main hallway where she knew Colonel Roberts would need the maintenance reports. As she walked, she could hear the sound of boots marching in formation. The honor guard was escorting the visitor. Sarah stepped aside respectfully as the group approached. Leading the formation was a man she had never seen before. He was tall and weathered, with the bearing of someone who had experienced real combat. His uniform showed the insignia of a Navy SEAL commander. Behind him walked Colonel Roberts and several other high-ranking officers. As they passed by, the SEAL commander glanced at Sarah. His eyes moved to her left arm where her tattoo was visible below her rolled-up sleeve. Suddenly he stopped walking completely. The entire formation came to a halt. Colonel Roberts looked confused. "Commander Peterson, is everything all right?" Commander Peterson was staring directly at Sarah's tattoo with an expression of complete shock and recognition. Slowly he turned to face her. Then, to everyone's amazement, he came to perfect military attention and gave Sarah a formal salute. Sarah's eyes widened in surprise, but her military training took over immediately. She came to attention and returned the salute with crisp precision. "It's an honor, Staff Sergeant Martinez," Commander Peterson said in a voice filled with deep respect. The hallway went completely silent. Colonel Roberts and the other officers looked bewildered. Down the hall, Sergeant Wilson and his friends had stopped to watch. Their mouths were hanging open in shock. Commander Peterson held his salute much longer than normal military protocol required. When he finally lowered his hand, he stepped closer to Sarah. "Coordinates 34.0522 degrees north, 71.5269 degrees east," he said quietly but clearly. Operation Desert Eagle. March 8, 2018. Sarah's face remained calm, but there was a flicker of deep emotion in her eyes. Those coordinates and that operation name clearly meant something very significant to her. "You were there, sir?" she asked softly. "I commanded the rescue team," Commander Peterson replied. "What you did that night, what you sacrificed to save those men, it saved 15 lives. Including some of my closest friends." The silence in the hallway was deafening. Sergeant Wilson looked like he might be sick. The other soldiers who had witnessed months of mockery suddenly realized they had no idea who Sarah Martinez really was. Colonel Roberts stepped forward, looking completely confused. "Commander, I'm afraid I don't understand. Staff Sergeant Martinez's records show standard support assignments. Communications and vehicle maintenance." Commander Peterson looked at Colonel Roberts, then back at Sarah with tremendous respect. "Much of Staff Sergeant Martinez's service record remains classified at the highest levels. What I can tell you is that she was part of a joint special operations mission in Afghanistan. Her actions during that mission were nothing short of extraordinary." He paused and looked directly at Wilson and the other soldiers who were listening with growing horror at what they were learning. "That tattoo you've all been laughing at," the commander continued, his voice growing stern, "represents the coordinates of a remote outpost that came under massive enemy attack. Staff Sergeant Martinez was there as a communications specialist, but when the ranking officers were killed or wounded, she took command of the entire defense." Sarah's face remained professional, but her hands were slightly trembling as the classified details of her service were being revealed. Commander Peterson continued, his voice filled with admiration. "She coordinated the defense of that position, called in air support under heavy enemy fire, and personally carried 4 wounded soldiers to safety. She maintained radio contact with headquarters while providing medical treatment to casualties. She fought continuously for 22 hours straight." Wilson felt like the ground was disappearing beneath his feet. Every joke he had made about Sarah's tattoo being decorative or feminine now seemed not just wrong but shameful and ignorant. "When our rescue team finally reached the outpost," Commander Peterson explained to the stunned group, "we found Staff Sergeant Martinez still at her radio, still coordinating support, still taking care of wounded soldiers. She had been fighting for nearly a full day with minimal ammunition, limited medical supplies and no backup." He turned back to Sarah with deep respect. "The geometric design in her tattoo isn't random artwork. Those lines represent the defensive positions she established that night. Positions that held against overwhelming enemy forces until help could arrive." The commander looked around at all the soldiers who had gathered to witness this exchange, his eyes hard. "This is what real courage looks like," he said firmly. "It doesn't always come with fanfare or public recognition. Sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones quietly doing maintenance work and filing reports, carrying the weight of their extraordinary service without complaint or recognition." Wilson stepped forward, his face red with shame and embarrassment. "Staff Sergeant Martinez? Oh, we had no idea, we didn't know." Sarah looked at him steadily. "You never asked." The simple truth of that statement hit everyone present like a physical blow. They had made assumptions based on her gender, her quiet personality, and their own limited understanding of what military heroism could look like. Commander Peterson wasn't finished. "That tattoo that you've been mocking represents what we call blood coordinates in the special operations community. It marks someone who held an impossible position against overwhelming odds and saved lives doing it. It's one of the most respected symbols of combat heroism that exists." He looked specifically at Wilson and his friends, his expression severe. Any special operations soldier who sees that design knows immediately what it means. It means you're looking at someone who has been tested under the worst possible circumstances and proved their courage beyond any doubt. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours. Finally, Wilson came to attention and saluted Sarah. His friends quickly followed his example. One by one, every soldier in the hallway began saluting as well. Sarah returned each salute with the same precise military bearing she had shown Commander Peterson. "The mission details remain classified," Commander Peterson told Colonel Roberts, "which is why you won't find specifics in her regular personnel file. But I can tell you that Staff Sergeant Martinez received commendations and medals that she has never been able to display publicly due to the classified nature of the operations." Colonel Roberts was struggling to process all this information. "Staff Sergeant Martinez, why didn't you ever mention any of this?" "It's classified, sir," Sarah replied simply. "And it was my duty. Nothing more than that." Commander Peterson shook his head with admiration. "Nothing more," she says. "Staff Sergeant, you held that position with almost no ammunition, limited medical supplies, and no reinforcements for 22 hours. You saved 15 American soldiers' lives. That's far more than just duty. Later that day, after Commander Peterson had completed his inspection and left the base, things were very different for Sarah Martinez. Soldiers who had previously ignored her or made jokes now approached her with genuine respect and admiration. Wilson appeared at her workstation in the motor pool, looking deeply uncomfortable but determined to speak with her. "Staff Sergeant Martinez," he began, his voice shaky, "I owe you a sincere apology. We all do. What we said about you and your tattoo, how we treated you, it was completely wrong and disrespectful." Sarah continued working on the engine in front of her. "You made assumptions based on limited information. It happens in the military." "No," Wilson insisted, his voice getting stronger. "It was much more than that. We made assumptions because you're a woman. We decided that you couldn't have done anything really important or heroic in the military. That kind of thinking was ignorant, sexist, and completely wrong." Sarah finally stopped working and looked up at him. "The military is changing, Sergeant Wilson. Women are now serving in combat roles, special operations, and every other capacity. But change takes time and people's attitudes change slowly." She wiped her hands on a cloth and continued speaking. "What really matters isn't whether people immediately understand or recognize your service. What matters is that you do your job with honor and integrity, whether anyone acknowledges it or not." Wilson nodded, but he still looked troubled by what he had learned. "Those coordinates in your tattoo. What you went through that night in Afghanistan, how do you carry something that heavy?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking carefully about her answer. "You carry it because 15 people got to go home to their families. You carry it because that's what we all signed up for when we joined the military, to protect each other and complete the mission no matter what. The public recognition doesn't matter. The lives that were saved do." Over the following weeks, the story of what had happened in that hallway spread throughout the entire base. Everyone learned about Sarah's true heroism and the real meaning behind her tattoo. Soldiers began to look at her completely differently, not as a woman trying to prove herself in a man's world, but as a proven combat veteran who had more than earned her place through courage and sacrifice. The incident changed much more than just how people viewed Sarah Martinez. It changed how many soldiers thought about making assumptions, about judging people based on their appearance or gender, and about the hidden depths of courage and heroism that can exist in the most unexpected places. Sarah continued doing the same work she had always done, maintaining vehicles, handling administrative duties, and supporting base operations. But now when she walked through the base, she received the respect and recognition that had always been her due. New soldiers arriving at the base quickly learned about Staff Sergeant Martinez and her service record, both the parts that were public knowledge and the parts that remained classified. The geometric lines of her tattoo were no longer seen as decorative artwork or a feminine design. They were recognized for what they truly were, a permanent reminder of a night when one soldier's courage, quick thinking, and leadership had made the difference between life and death for 15 others. Wilson and his friends became completely different soldiers after that day. The experience of being so completely wrong about someone they had judged and mocked taught them lessons that no military training manual could ever provide. They learned to look beyond surface appearances, to respect their fellow soldiers regardless of gender, and to understand that true military heroism and courage come in many different forms. Commander Peterson's salute had lasted only a few seconds, but its impact would be felt for years to come. It had revealed not just Sarah's hidden heroism and sacrifice, but also the hidden prejudices and assumptions that had allowed her extraordinary service to go unrecognized and mocked for so long. The story became a powerful reminder throughout the base that symbols of honor and courage can be found in the most unexpected places, worn by unlikely heroes who ask for nothing more than the opportunity to serve their country with dignity. Sometimes it takes the recognition of just one person who truly understands to reveal the depth of sacrifice and heroism that others have been completely blind to. Sarah Martinez continued to serve with the same quiet professionalism and dedication she had always shown. But now, finally, she served with the recognition, respect, and honor that her extraordinary courage had earned. And every time someone saw her tattoo, they would remember the important lesson learned that day, that true warriors and heroes recognize each other, and that honor, courage, and sacrifice come in many different forms, sometimes worn by heroes who may be standing right beside you.